Bayon Temple Gate. Here we are at Bayon Temple. So this is the temple that famously has the big, scary-looking faces of Hindu and Buddhist deities. All along the outside of the wall of Bayon Temple, you can see these tons and tons of carvings, these murals, and they tell the story of the Khmer at this time, which was about 800 years ago. Here you have scenes of war, and these particular scenes star the Khmer people themselves, and you can always tell them here because they have the long ears and the broad, kind of wide, flat faces, which is how they're depicted on these murals. See the war elephants right there. Now, following right behind them, interestingly, are the Chinese, and the Chinese are always depicted as having these headdresses right here and these long beards and a different shaped face. See the swords that they have. Very interesting, and there's just a lot of stories all over these temples' walls. Very, very cool indeed. Let's go back through the front entrance. So here we are at the front entrance, and we're just going to go through. So there's an extensive interior. I'll show you a little bit of that. Very cool. You see that even the stairs have carvings. Look at that. So everywhere along here there used to be Buddhist statues and also some Hindu statues. The Buddhist statues were removed some time ago by the Hindus. All over the place used to be these lingams, as they're called, right here. Maybe I can, here's one. Here's one that's still present and more or less intact. See a lot of these in Hindu temples in Nepal and India. So this is a lingam, and sometimes you'd pour milk or water over them. And so most places where you see one of these broken or empty squares, they had one there. Unfortunately, the way up to these amazing faces, they are closed right now because they're trying to renovate and preserve. But there are the famous faces of Bayon Temple. They're just everywhere. Extraordinary, aren't they? They are both Hindu and Buddhist deity faces. This was a temple that served both faiths during its lifetime. So all along the walls, you'll see these niches, and in every single case, there was a Buddha in each of them. And in every single case, the Buddhas were vandalized and destroyed. I guess because they weren't Hindu enough, and instead, they kind of tried to leave them in this this lingam shape right here. See that? That's all the Buddha statue that was left. See, in every case, kind of a lingam shape. One of the things that you might notice is that in this particular temple, the rocks sometimes have holes and sometimes they do not. And there's a reason for this, and that's because the king who built these, he built more temples in the Angkor region than all the other kings put together. And he unfortunately started to run out of materials. The quarry for all these temples is something like 60 kilometers away from Angkor. And so he decided he would just, we'll just say, recycle some of the previous buildings that other people had built. And as a result, you have this kind of a hodgepodge of different stones. And some of the stones are decorative, such as these right here. You can see that there's some decorations on here. You also see that they aren't full of holes. And that's because they're already decorated and carved. On the other hand, these right here that do have the holes, that are generally undecorated, this is because they came from a building that had stucco on the wall, stucco or plaster, and so these holes existed. So to basically give a place for the stucco or the plaster, a place to purchase, and then after that stucco was dry, then they could paint it whatever color they wanted. And these would have been very colorful temples. And then they also could have gone and sheeted over with sheets of gold leaf, which according to some of the script in places like Bayon Temple, they did in fact use gold leaf. They actually used 500 kilograms of gold leaf on bricks that were just like this at Bayon Temple alone. And so because this is a temple made of recycled materials, that's why you'll see that some of the stones have holes and some of them do not have holes. When they found this place, it was completely covered by jungle. So they stripped off all the big trees in the jungle. They were unable to put everything back together. And so large quantities of the temple lay here in rubble. But they still restored quite a lot. It's remarkable to me that so many of these ruins here in Angkor still have the roofs. Look at that. The roofs are still there, and in many cases they're not there because they were put back together. The roofs just survived. Everywhere you go, there's fine carvings. Everywhere. Let's go into one of these buildings that still has a roof. You can see, again, the remains of a lingam. And up here in the top, you can see, here we are at the outside. Believe it or not, some of these were actually libraries that contained many papyrus scrolls. Of course, the papyrus scrolls are gone now because, paper doesn't last 800 years typically. The king that built this also built something like 102 hospitals, particularly maternity hospitals. And that is also described in the carvings on the outside of these temples. So cool. You can see people love to come here and have weddings and wedding pictures. We saw a graduation ceremony here, and people love to come dressed up in old style Khmer outfits. Who can blame people for doing that? I don't blame them. Another thing that you're going to see everywhere are these trenches that I'm about to walk up to. They're just everywhere. What are these trenches? Well, they're drains. The ancient Khmer were very good with water. They were very good at making canals and pools and irrigation and drainage. They were very good with it indeed, which obviously is important if you're going to have a civilization, you know, with 1 million people, and especially in a place like Southeast Asia, where of course it just rains absolutely non-stop during certain times of the year. Here at the temples, you got to keep the local Khmers happy, and that means having delicious peanuts and silkworm larvae and crickets. I've had silkworm larvae and crickets. Silkworm larvae are not good, but crickets are actually really, really yummy. And if you get a chance, I recommend you give some a try.